Ever get that, like, antsy feeling? You know, you're waiting for something. It could be anything, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like so universal, right? Whether you're waiting for that promotion or, I don't know, good news from the doctor,
Yeah.
or even just like waiting for your food to be ready when you're starving.
Exactly. It can be so frustrating. And that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah, we're going to look at the Islamic tradition, how it helps us to deal with that whole waiting game and, find some peace while we're at it.
We're going to unpack all that. We've got some really interesting sources that offer, like, a full blueprint for, like, how to not just survive, but thrive in those in-between times.
Right. Instead of freaking out, we can actually use that time for like spiritual growth.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Okay, so first up is tawakkul. Now, a lot of people think, oh, tawakkul, just like sit back and let things happen. But our sources say it's so much more than that.
Oh, yeah. It's not about being passive at all. Tawakkul is all about putting your complete trust in God, like relying on Him fully. Even the word itself in Arabic, it has this sense of like surrendering,
Hmm.
you know, depending completely. It's deep.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that, like, we're not in control.
Right. We do what we can, but ultimately it's God who's in charge.
You know what this reminds me of? That hadith, the story about the guy with the camel. He asked, like, should I tie my camel or just trust in God? And the prophet, peace be upon him, said, like, tie your camel and then put your trust in Allah.
Yeah. It shows you've got to do your part. You can't just sit around and expect miracles.
Exactly. But once you've done your part, you let go and trust that God will take care of the rest.
And that's where Allah's name, Al-Wakil, comes in. The trustee, like the one who handles everything.
Right. So basically, having tawakkul is like saying, okay, I've done what I can, and now I'm putting my trust in the best possible hands.
Exactly. And that brings a sense of security, like you don't have to worry about controlling everything.
The Quran actually says, whoever places their trust in Allah, He is sufficient for them. It's a pretty powerful statement.
It is, isn't it? It's a reminder that we're never really alone in this.
So that's tawakkul. It's about effort and trust. Now, our sources also talk a lot about sabr.
Yes, sabr, which is often translated as patience, but I think it's much deeper than that. It's about like enduring, restraint,
Yeah.
perseverance, choosing to be resilient.
It's not just about waiting, but about, like, how we wait.
Exactly. And sabr is super important in Islam.
And the Quran talks about it all the time.
Yeah, it's like a recurring theme. Like, indeed, Allah is with the patient.
And there's that one, indeed, the patient will be given their reward without measure. That one's really powerful.
Right? It's like a huge promise, and it shows you just how much value sabr has.
So how does sabr actually help us deal with, like, waiting and the stress that comes with it?
Well, it gives you strength to stay strong in your faith, to keep doing good deeds, even when things aren't going your way, or when you have to wait.
So it's not just about, like, gritting your teeth and bearing it.
No, it's about finding, like, inner peace, calm in the midst of all the chaos.
I see. So are there, like, practical ways to actually cultivate Savera?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Our sources talk about a few key things like dhikr, remembering God, and giving charity, sadaqah. And of course, dua, and making supplication.
And also just reflecting on your blessings, your challenges.
Right. And don't forget prayer, salah. All of these things, they help you connect with your faith and they strengthen your saber muscle.
So it's like a balancing act. It's not about just, like, sitting around waiting, but it's also not about being, like, totally consumed by the wait.
Yeah, exactly. Islam teaches us to find that balance, to put in the effort, but also to accept God's will.
There's that verse in the Quran, right, that says something like, and that there is not for man except that good for which he strives.
Yeah,
So, like, we have to work for what we want.
exactly. But then after you've put in the effort,
What-
then you trust. You put your trust in Allah's plan, His qadr. You try to be content with whatever outcome He has chosen for you.
It's like letting go, but in a good way. And the Quran actually says, then when you have taken a decision, put your trust in Allah. So it's like you make the decision, you do your best, and then you leave the rest to God.
Exactly. And, when you're in that waiting period and it feels really tough, that's when your faith becomes even more important.
Right, because it can be hard. How do you, like, actually find solace in those moments?
Well, salah, prayer, that becomes a huge source of comfort. And dhikr, remembering Allah.
So they're like anchors.
Yeah, they
All
keep
right.
you grounded.
Yeah.
And there's this verse in the Quran that says, seek God Allah's help with patient perseverance and prayer. And another beautiful one, surely in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find comfort. It's so true, isn't it? Just remembering God, it brings a sense of peace.
It does. And so managing the anxiety of waiting, it's really like a multifaceted approach.
It is. It's about strengthening your faith. Turning to du'a, supplication. Practicing sabr and also gratitude, shukr, for what you already have.
And accepting that God has a plan
Mm.
and that his timing might not always be our timing.
And focusing on the present moment.
And ultimately putting your tawakkul in him,
Yeah.
trusting him completely.
Exactly. And there's this beautiful supplication for when you're feeling anxious. Allah is enough for me. There is no true God but him. In him I put my trust, and he's the Lord of the great throne. It's such a powerful reminder.
It is. And ultimately, I think it comes down to like trusting that God's timing is perfect, even if it's not what we expect, or even if it's like really hard to understand.
And there's this verse in the Quran that says, but perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you, and Allah knows while you know not. So like what we think is good for us might not actually be good for us, and what we think is bad might turn out to be a blessing.
So it's about surrendering to that bigger picture.
Yeah, trusting that God knows best. And finding peace in the journey, even when it's tough.
That's such a good reminder. Thank you so much for this deep dive. It's been like really enlightening.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.